This is BoomerLife on CL 650.
I'm so tired, I haven't slept a wink. I'm so tired.
And welcome back to the show.
Mind is on the blink.
Thanks for joining us here on CL 650. Farouk Manji is here from SleepShop, our sleep expert. And your North Shore location is opening up in just a few weeks on April 22nd. So literally 3 weeks away. And where exactly is it again in North Van?
We're at 1171 Marine Drive, right next to Orange Theory and the Volkswagen dealership right on Marine. And
Clarkdale, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Not Clarkdale.
No, not Clarkdale, but there's a
I know the one you mean. Yeah, sorry. My mistake. And we also have joining us here from the North Shore Stress and Anxiety Clinic, Dr. Sarah Newth and Dr. Kristen Buer. Welcome back. And we were talking before the break about age and sleep and how much sleep you need. Our guests are from the North Shore Stress and Anxiety Clinic. So what kind of changes and other things that should we mention about sleep and age?
Well, I think one of the things is developmentally as we go across the lifespan, there's different things going on at different times. And I think as we age, there's a lot of changes in life that can be happening that can really be associated with sleep. And so one example would be the various kind of health issues that can be more frequent. This could be everything from being more prone to aches and pains or being diagnosed with a health condition that perhaps requires certain medications that can interfere with sleep. Even something as simple as high blood pressure medication or even cough medicine. These are things that we know can disrupt sleep and make it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep.
Now, one thing I'm interested in, you were talking about stress and anxiety, and there's probably everybody has a spell in their life where they've been stressed or anxious about something going on in their life, which does affect their sleep, right? So you're worried about money, you're worried about your job, or you're worried about your kids or whatever it is, and you're not getting good sleep during that time. So what's the difference between that and the anxiety and the stress is causing you to have poor sleep?
Well, that's a really good kind of question in terms of trying to figure out, kind of what's kind of normal kind of sleep disruptions and when is it a significant problem that might be caused by something serious like an anxiety problem or other things that we've kind of talked about or we can talk about. I mean, I think one thing we want to be really clear is it's normal to every once in a while have trouble falling asleep. It's normal to sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and not be able to go back to sleep or wake up way earlier than you wanted to. Mm-hmm. Or to have one of those days where you just feel like you didn't get a good night's sleep and you feel really tired and you're just not kind of performing at your best. That's normal. So
getting up on the wrong
days once in a while that pops up that can come because of some daily hassles or some stressors or you started a new med, that's really normal. I think when it starts to become a problem, and I think the sleep problem we really want to focus on today is kind of insomnia. Mm-hmm. When it becomes a problem, it means that you're quite frequently having trouble falling asleep. So if you kind of look at your sleep patterns, it's at least 3 nights a week, you're having trouble falling asleep. It takes you at least 30 minutes, if not significantly more, to fall asleep. You'd be waking up potentially multiple times throughout the night and not being able to sleep, or at least 3 nights or more a week, really early morning wakings. And it's upsetting for you. Like, you're quite worried about the fact that you're not sleeping, and you're concerned about how it's impacting you. You are tired during the day. You're not kind of at your best. And it's starting to interfere with your functioning. And then we consider it a problem, where there's that really consistent trouble falling, staying asleep. It's distressing for you, and then it starts to interfere. And then for sure you want to do something about it. And the question you were asking about stress and anxiety, it's like, a stressor can pop up and that can kind of trigger the odd, one-off kind of sleep problem. But having a, significant ongoing stress or struggling with an anxiety problem or a mood problem, that can definitely impact your sleep and cause you not to have as kind of good quality sleep. And of course, if you're not sleeping as well, then that affects your mood, that makes you more anxious, that, interferes with your ability to effectively cope with stress. So it can become a bit of a vicious cycle. So, we definitely have kind of normal kind of ups and downs with sleep, but when you get stuck where it's this consistent, enduring pattern, then you definitely want to do something about that.
Here's an interesting question. Why does everything seem worse at night? Like all of the worries in your life when you're lying in bed, they seem to be worse when you're lying in bed. Then you wake up in the morning and go, why was I worrying about that so much? It wasn't a big... Is there something about that? Because everybody seems to have that issue where they wake up in the middle of the night, they're worrying about something, and then in the morning they're like, why was I up half the night worrying about that?
Yeah, I think there's probably a number of reasons why we're more vulnerable at night. I mean, one of them is actually biologically driven and goes back thousands of years, which is from dusk until dawn is where we tend to be more vulnerable. If you think thousands of years ago, we were more vulnerable to predators. We can't see as well at night. So a certain part of that is we just feel more vulnerable at night. And when you feel more vulnerable, you're more likely to worry. It's harder to feel grounded. It's harder to get a good perspective. I think what often happens is that people are often unaware that even though they're awake, they're not actually fully awake. They may be actually kind of nibbling at the edges of falling down into one of the deeper stages of sleep. So you're awake just enough to worry and stress, but not awake enough to actually really tap into your full capacity to look at things in a more grounded way. And it's why one of the strategies that we often recommend is that if you're lying in bed worrying and stressing, it's really important to get out of bed and go into another room. Sometimes just getting out of your bedroom and going into your living room, you can start to tap into feeling more grounded. But if you lie in that bed tossing and turning and spinning that worry around in your head, it'll often feel a lot more catastrophic than it will in the morning when you get up.
Yeah, everybody's had that experience, I'm sure. One of the issues is when you can't sleep. What's your advice to somebody? Should you try and stay in place and fall back to sleep, or get out of bed and go and do something like read in another room or what have you, and then come back and revisit it again? Because I've had times where I can't sleep and I'm just like, well, I'm going to go and change and then come back and try an hour later. What's your advice there?
Well, that is a great question. I think it's a key thing to keep in mind, and I think it's a big mistake that people make, is that they think that they should stay in bed and just keep trying. But if you're laying in bed and after 20 or 30 minutes it becomes blatantly clear that you're not going to be able to fall asleep, one of the best things that you can do is get out of bed. And again, don't do something that's really active that's going to wake you up. So it's not good to grab your phone or your tablet and watch something really stimulating. It's good to do something very calming or relaxing or pleasant. It could be keeping the lights low and listening to a little bit of music until you feel kind of a bit sleepy, and then it's time to go back to bed. But what we don't want to do is associate being in your bed with being wide awake and not being able to sleep, and then worrying that you can't sleep. So it seems counterintuitive to be like, get out of bed but I want to be sleeping. But if you can't sleep, it's better to get out of bed, do something calming, and then go back to bed.
And part of why that strategy is so important is that we're wanting to create a really strong association between our bed being associated with essentially feeling relaxed, feeling asleep, falling asleep, and possibly other activities that are pleasurable, like having sex. That's it. If you're not doing one of those kind of activities, and especially if you're feeling stressed, you don't want to associate that with your bed or your bedroom, because what happens over time is then when you go to bed, your body starts to think of it as, this is where I go to worry, this is where I go to stress, and we want to break that vicious cycle. So the strategies Kristen is talking about help break that cycle. If we're going to be stressed and worried, have it be somewhere else in your home.
So your bedroom is your sanctuary.
Your bedroom is your sanctuary.
And it's tough because I think a lot of people, they sit in bed and they read, or they watch TV, or that's where they do work, or students do homework there. But again, you're really making that connection of being in your bed and being wide awake and doing something alert, and you don't want to do that. Now, one thing we should kind of point out is a lot of the strategies we're going to talk about today, if you've got a sleep problem, these things are really important to do. But if you actually don't have a sleep problem, these things aren't that big of a deal. It goes back to what Dr. Newf was mentioning about napping. If you don't have a sleep problem, the odd nap's not okay. If you have a sleep problem, napping all the time is a problem. Just like if you don't have a sleep problem, doing a little bit of reading in bed or watching a little TV, that can be okay. But if you struggle with your sleep, you don't want to be doing those activities in bed, because they're keeping you too awake, and they're making the wrong type of associations of you being in bed and being too active and awake.
So what are some of the health problems associated with sleep disorders? There's quite a list here. You can run through some of them.
Yeah, there's quite a few of them. I think one of the ones that we routinely encourage clients to screen for would be sleep apnea. A lot of times people are, not feeling refreshed. They're having difficulty feeling like they're getting a good night's sleep. And so if you find that you're a person who that you chronically snore, if you know that you most days feel very tired, if other people have commented to you, your partner has commented to you that it sometimes seems like you're almost skipping breath or you're almost stopping breathing for small periods of time in the night, and then you also have high blood pressure, those are some of the markers where we say, we really need you to get a screen for sleep apnea. And many, many people have had undiagnosed sleep apnea, and when that is diagnosed and they receive some support and resources around that, they find that they really start to feel like they're getting a really good night's sleep. There's a range of other kinds of things that people should be aware of. I think that if you have anything that's causing you chronic or acute pain and that is not as well managed as it is, just rolling over in bed at night, you might find that you're having shoulder pain or hip pain, and that is enough to wake you up. And once you wake up and you can feel pain or back cramps or any of that kind of thing, it can be really tough to fall back asleep. So that would be another very, very common example that we want people to get support and resources around. But there's a range of things. It could be digestive problems. It could be things like heartburn, acid reflux. These are all things that can disrupt sleep. Many people are also unaware that alcohol can have a real bad impact on sleep. Many people who are struggling with sleep are tempted to have an extra drink or two at night because they find that it makes them sleepy. It feels like it gets that sleep drive kicking in, and maybe it does help them fall asleep. But many people are unaware that alcohol also can have a stimulant effect, and later in the night, it is very common, if we've had a couple of drinks, that we will wake up several hours later and again have trouble falling back asleep. I think the other thing can be there are a range of sleep disorders in addition to sleep apnea that people can be suffering from, and so sometimes people have what's called restless leg syndrome, and if you have this, your partner has probably let you know because you'll be kicking your legs in the night, and we know that it's difficult to sleep if you have restless leg syndrome, for which there are treatments. And there's a range of other kinds of sleep disorders that it can be important for people to be screened for, and that's as simple as chatting to your GP and just letting them know what specific symptoms you're coping with and ruling out some of those sleep disorders.
And that really is important because the reality is sleep problems like insomnia generally they can kind of occur just by themselves, and that's really the only problem, but generally they co-occur with other problems, which means you might have a medical problem, you might have a mental health problem that's contributing to that. So it is important to talk to your GP and kind of find out what else is going on, because just like that, that kind of a mood disorder and anxiety problem can cause sleep problems make all of those things worse. Just like a chronic health problem or chronic pain can contribute to poor sleep, having poor sleep exacerbates all those problems too. So it can be quite a vicious cycle. So you definitely want to make sure that you're kind of figuring out if there's any kind of medical things, other types of sleep problems or mental health issues that you also need help with, in addition to some strategies specifically targeting your sleep.
We're speaking with doctors Sarah Newth and Kristen Buer from the North Shore Stress and Anxiety Clinic, along with Farouk Manji from SleepShop, your sleep experts. They're on the North Shore. Farouk, you have your new location in North Vancouver on Marine Drive. When we come back, we're going to talk about what kind of strategies. We talked a bit about having an oasis, and that's where SleepShop comes in, getting some, the proper kind of mattress and pillow and sheets and the setting for getting a good night's sleep, other sleep strategies as well. When we continue next on CL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.